Welcome to our
Yeah.
lunch and learn with
We'll just wait for
Acumatica
a few more
here.
people to
I'm
load.
excited to have this presentation today. I'm Jesse Ferguson, CEO and co-founder of Amplify Advisors, as well as looking after Amplified Tech.
Awesome.
So I'm excited to we're a partner with Acumatica. We resell and then we implement NetSuite and work with Acumatica around this software. In addition, we have Dwayne from our sales team here. Dwayne, say hi.
Hello, nice to meet everyone.
Awesome. And just a reminder, we do have some upcoming webinars. So November 14th, for any CPAs on the call, we have a CPA Alberta peer-to-peer forum, which we're going to be presenting on navigating modern business technology. So that kind of relates to today. So probably a good one to attend as well. And then on November 19th, we have an AHA with Amplify with Michael Godet, and that's going to be on understanding your ideal client profile and how that can help you better forecast revenue. Both registration links will be available in the chat, so feel free to sign up for those. So we got a short amount of time. I don't want to spend the time talking about our team. I want to pass it over to Stacy, and we're going to be talking about projects within Acumatica today. So Stacy is a subject matter expert from Acumatica to give us that demo. Dwayne will be managing the chat, so if you do have questions, feel free to type those into the chat, and we'll do our best to raise those questions to Stacy, and she can block and tackle as need be. Stacy, I will push it over to you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Okay, let me do a quick screen share. Excellent. All right, here we go. Coming here, guys. Sorry. So, here it comes. Here we go. All right. Can everybody see my screen okay and hear me okay?
You betcha.
Excellent. Great. Thank you very much. All right. Well, thank you, Jesse, for having me here today. And thank you, everyone, for being here. My name is Stacy Conley. I'm with Acumatica, and I have been with Acumatica for just shy of 3 years now. And previously, I worked in industry. I was an accountant in both construction and manufacturing companies. So I hope that what I bring to you here today is relevant, relatable experience, having sat in your seats and understanding some of the pain points and the things that you folks have probably are experiencing on a regular basis. And just how to get better, more timely information out of the system. So Acumatica is a role-based system. We have unlimited users, which makes our model a little bit different than those in the ERP space today, which makes us a little bit unique and makes us special. So you can see here what I've done is I've come into Acumatica and I've logged in today as Maxwell Baker. Now, Maxwell Baker, his role is probably somebody in the project space. And so he lands on a dashboard that gives him insight into the things that he needs to take care of today or this week to get things done and keep things moving. So you can see here on this project manager site, I've got some different kinds of KPIs here. I have access to 24 active projects. Those could be all 24 projects that are going on in the company. That could be the 24 projects that are just assigned to me. Again, it's based on the role and the permissions that we allow people and the information that they have access to. So you can see here, like I said, that I've got a lot of different information about underutilized employees, maybe some of my tasks that need to be taken care of, and things that are relevant to the projects that I'm taking care of. In Acumatica, we do have approval maps and workflows. So if in fact you choose to use those, then you will see here that I've got information that's showing up on my dashboard, letting me know that I've got items to approve, and I don't want to hold up the process, right? So I want to go ahead and make sure that I get those items pushed through the system, and so that AP can do their check runs and we can place those purchase orders and all the other things that matter. I've got some information about expenses here and budgets. We also have the ability to link websites and do a link here. So here's an example of a job site camera. And I'm using a service called TrueLook, and they have job site cameras that are throughout their area down in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, of different job sites. And you're able to watch the site evolve, and you're able to watch either the building be erected, or you're able to see, you know, the construction taking place, whatever it might be. It could be an internal camera, an external camera. This is something that a lot of our clients like to use, whether or not it's really just being able to track the progress on it. Maybe it's for liability or legalities. Maybe it's just they want to be able to give progress photos to the stakeholders of the project, or maybe it's just you want to have it in the entryway of your company as people are coming in, and they can see the different projects that you're working on. There could also be a camera that's over your warehouse, right, or over your manufacturing floor, or over your inventory cage, or maybe it's for security reasons. But again, you have the ability to link any kind of a camera, drone technology. They can do those flybys and get those progress updates. And then also is a National Weather Service. This is another very common thing that many of our clients like to use. If your line of business requires good weather and sending crews out in good weather situations, and you want to be able to start planning your week for next week, and you're relying on that 10-day forecast, then you might want to go ahead and have a link to something like that, which brings you, again, that useful information right to your dashboard. So this here is an example of one of many dashboards that are available in Acumatica. We have them as they serve the controllers and the AP specialists. We have them, you know, obviously throughout Acumatica for all of our different workspaces and different roles in the company. So here on the left-hand side, you can see this here is our workspaces, the individual workspaces. Now, lots of people wear lots of hats, right? Just because I'm the controller and I worry about finance and payables and receivables and banking and payroll, but I also might want to have some insight into what's going on the sales side, the open number of projects, where we're at for profitability, open sales orders, you know, what are we projecting to close for orders, cash flow, right? There's a lot of conversation about cash flow, cash on hand. So of course, there's a lot of different metrics that you want to pull together, maybe on your dashboard back here, but you're going to also navigate through here on the left-hand side. Again, I have these turned on for demo purposes. So you're not necessarily going to have access to all of these, but it's going to be based on the permissions that are set up in the system for each of the individual roles, whether they can edit items or view items, and how they're going to be able to navigate throughout these. But what's important to point out here is that in each of these workspaces, there's a lot of different features and functions that we can do. Here's a quick show all. You can see there's lots of items in the AP space, but I can manage this by dwindling this list down just by handling it here with the little gear wheel. I can turn items on and off, just so that when I'm all done with that, I can exit out, I can show less. And now my workspace is a little bit less cluttered, and I'm able to just navigate and be a little bit more efficient. In addition to that, I'm going to do that same step throughout all the different workspaces that I go into, but I'm also going to turn on these little yellow stars on the left-hand side. And when I do that, that's going to favorite those items. So now I come into receivables. What are those items I do and touch every day? I'm going to turn those on as well. If I come into finance, what items do I do there? And then instead of hunting and pecking and going through all of these individual workspaces every day, I could just work right out of my favorites workspace. And now you're going to see I wear my payables hat, receivables, banking, finance. So whatever it is that you do, of course, you want to be able to have access to them right there. Then when there's like that one-off, that once a quarter, once a year, just those special projects that you're working on, you could come in here and find the other items that you need when you need it. This little white box up here at the top, this is what we call our universal search in Acumatica. Whenever you're looking for something that might be something that you don't do very commonly, and you're just not exactly sure what we call it in Acumatica, you know, a very common one here in the US is 1099s. I know that many Canadian companies don't necessarily use 1099s, or they don't at all, right? Because you guys are in Canada. You know, you could also go ahead and use, enter anything else. Let's just say that somebody just called me, a vendor just called me and said, hey, I'm calling to find out if you are, when you're going to pay invoice number 1099. Here in the system, I can type in 1099, and it's going to bring back every item that within its record that has something with 1099 within its record. This is an AP bill, so that's an invoice number 1099. AR state payment, that was a check number 1099. Maybe we had a project going on in our system. It was called 1099 Main Street. So again, the system is going to bring back anything that you're looking for that relates to that particular search. In this case, if I was looking for that 1099 process, then I would go over to the menu items and it would show me menu items that have 1099 within its record. Or if I needed to search into those a little bit further, I could get the help menu, and that would give me an explanation as to what those areas do. So that's true of anything in the system that you might want to do. The word employees, right? I'm trying to set up a new employee. Where do I go? Well, look at all the different menu items that contain the word employee. And now I can find the one feature that I'm looking for and set up that new employee in the system. This little dial here to the right of that, that's called our recently viewed. Now, how many times do you come into the office and you're in the kitchen, you grab yourself a cup of coffee, you're talking to somebody about something, you ask them a question, and they need to get back to you a little bit later with that answer. So they poke their head in your office a few hours later and they give you that answer. So now I need to, all right, what was I doing? What was I working on when I needed to gather that information? So now I can come right back up to recently viewed. I can scroll down here. Oh, that's right. I was working on a particular payment for an employee and or a payroll employee, and I needed to get some information about where their work location was. Now I can come back. I can click right on that record very quickly. I can update that work location on their settings, and that will go ahead and serve what I need. And then I move on to the next thing. I don't know about you, but I can walk into a room and forget why I'm there. So, you know, we get distracted. It happens all the time. You get called away from your desk, you get called into the conference room, you have to step out for a personal appointment, or maybe it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you're wrapping up your day, and the next morning you need to come in and finish what you're doing. Where was I? What was I working on? So this is a nice, easy little tool to bring you back to that list of things that you're looking for. And lastly, in this kind of overall navigation look and feel about Acumatica is this section right here. Acumatica is a multi-company, a multi-branch, and a multi-currency software. So if you have the need for that today, awesome. We're going to give you just what we need right out of the box. If you don't have needs for that, that's okay. You don't need to use that functionality. But if you are thinking about creating another location, maybe opening up another office somewhere else. Maybe you want to separate your financial reports by lines of business. We have a business that sells products, but we also have a business that provides services. So then, of course, you're going to be able to break up that company structure like that. You're going to be able to run individual P&Ls, but you're also going to be able to run a consolidated P&L as well. So that functionality lives within Acumatica. If you don't need it today, we certainly won't limit you as you grow and evolve. And that's
Just a quick question in the chat. Is there full Canadian provincial compliance for reporting GST, PSD, payroll forms, ROEs, T4s, etc.?
Yes, there is.
Okay.
Yep. Over in the project space, let's move into that project area now, where we're going to go ahead and talk about that project accounting. In Acumatica, Acumatica sells multi-versions, multi-editions to their software. One of the editions that we sell is the General Business Edition, and that's the one that comes with all the financial reporting and then also allows you to track those project costs. One of our sweet spots is that we have lots of customers that are coming off of QuickBooks that struggle with not being able to accumulate and all of those project costs, and they're looking for a better way to do that. Now, we also sell a construction edition, which of course is much more robust, offers a lot more features and functionality. But for those that don't need all of that, this is kind of that nice little in between that's going to give you better visibility into your projects. Where are you spending your money? Are you making money? And so that's what we want to speak to today. So in the project space, you can see here that this is basically my project hub. This is a list of all of my projects that I have going on currently. And it's very easy to kick off a project in Acumatica. All you have to do is hit the plus up here on the top, and it allows you to create a brand new project. So you're going to enter in all of the relevant information. Who's the customer? What's the description? How do I want to track information on my project? Who's the project manager? Do I want to allow change orders to happen within the project? Am I going to restrict any employees or equipment that I want specifically working on just this project? How do I want to bill this project to my customers? Is it time and material? Is it progress billing? Do I certain milestones? And then whether or not you're doing any kind of holdback at all, or in the US, we call that retainage. If you are doing any kind of holdback, our system does accommodate that need as well. So the retainage and holdback system is set up there as well. Now, that's the first way to kick off a project. You're going to then go in and enter all the individual tasks. You're going to enter the revenue and the cost budget. Now, sometimes projects don't have a revenue budget. This is an internal project. Maybe it's some kind of research. It's something you're going to capitalize at the end. That's okay too. You don't have to fill out the revenue side of things. It can just be a cost accumulation budget, and that's all. The second way to kick off a project in Acumatica is using a template. And if you, of course, you're in a line of business that does very repetitious type of work, we install heating systems, whatever, any kind of like mechanical contractor or something like that, you would go ahead and we would have a standard template set up for that type of work. And maybe it's a template for a particular type of furnace install. You'd be able to grab that template. That would set up all of the core information for you. You wouldn't have to recreate the wheel. And then you go in and you just modify and tweak the things that are specific to that project. So that's a nice, easy way to handle setting up a project. The third way to set up a project is actually importing the data. If you're currently using a third-party system and that's working well for you and you want to continue to use that, we can import the data from there. If you're using Excel, and Excel is fantastic. Once you get those tools set up, you can go ahead and you can create those project templates and be able to do your quotes and bid those jobs. We can also bring the data in to set up your tasks, your revenue, and your cost budgets directly from Excel. And then the fourth way to set up a template, to set up a project in Acumatica would be by using project quotes. And if you want to use the system to create the sales opportunity, go ahead and do the quotes, send this off to the customer. Finally, you get awarded the job. Then at that point, that quote can be converted to a project, and that could kick off the project. So you've got lots of ways to be able to set up that initial system, that initial project. But let's go ahead and assume we've been awarded the project, things are up and running, and now let's go ahead and look at a project for you. I'm going to use this mechanical contractor one because it's pretty simplified. It's not overcomplicated, but let's go ahead and just take a look here. So in my summary information, I've decided that I am going to break down my project by task. And then I'm going to go a little bit deeper on my cost budget. I want to break it down by task and by cost code. And those are those work breakdown structures. Some of you might be familiar with that already. But you'll see an example of that as we get to those tabs. And then, of course, I'm going to do some progress billing on this job. And yes, in fact, I do have a 10% holdback. That's going to be part of this project as well. So now let's come over to the tasks. You can see here that I've got 4 simple tasks. I've got my general conditions, I've got my rough-in, my trim, and my finish. So those are the 4 areas that I want to go ahead and track that information by. And so now I'm going to associate a revenue amount to each of those lines. You can see over on my revenue budget now, I have revenue for $49,000, 137, 115, and 37 for a grand total of $161,000. You can see that at the top of the screen here. And then the expenses are going to come over from our cost budget and our actual expenses from our balances tab. And it's going to show us a margin. It's going to let us know how we're doing on that project. We're only at 5%. We might really need to start hand holding this project and keeping an eye on it because we don't want to go negative here. So now as I look at my one more column here, I want to show you in the revenue budget, that second column, it says potential change order amount. This means that we have a change order that might be happening. We've gone ahead and we've talked about it with the client. We've talked about what needs to be done, and we're just waiting for them to agree to it and sign off on the project. If that project gets accepted, then that particular change in the overall project, my original budget's going to be $49,000. It's always going to be $49,000. Once they accept that $4,100 in that potential change order, it's going to go ahead and revise that budget, and now that's going to be a $54,000 project, revised budget. So you can see here right now, this is just giving me insight that there's some things that are going on that maybe in fact will be changing, but at this point we have not everybody has blessed that particular change. Now let's move over to the cost budget. In the cost budget, I've taken those same 4 tasks and I've broken them down a little bit more to give me better handle on the things that I need to do within this project. So task 1, right, was the general requirements, the permits, and the operations and the mobilization. That is now 4 different individual lines that feed into line 1 back on the revenue page. So I'm expecting these 4 items to happen. And this is how I broke down my budget, my cost budget. So I know that I'm going to need to go pull permits. I know that my operations, my superintendent is going to put about 220 hours on the job at a $50 rate. And then that mobilization, that could be, you know, job site trailer. You know, we might also have some other things here where we, you know, dumpsters and porta potties and different things like that that we need to bring in. When I look at task 2, now that is also broken into 4 lines. And you can see here that I've broken in that mechanical area into 2 sections. I've got my mechanical part, which is going to have labor of 148 hours. And I've got material of 1,000 linear feet. Then I've also got the HVAC section of it, which is also part of the rough-in. I'm going to have 350 hours of labor, and I'm still going to have that 1,000 linear feet in the material section. And then it goes down into task 3 and into task 4. So you have the ability to break those cost lines into more granular items where you can really see and have a handle on what it is that you're expecting to happen within that job. Let's jump over the balances tab and let's move over here to the commitments. One of the things that I hope you're seeing here is that the project hub in Acumatica is kind of a one-stop shop. It's going to give everybody in the company information that they need that's relevant to their roles. So as the project manager, you've got this oversight into all the things that are happening within your particular project, but perhaps the folks in accounting want to know, you know, what am I expecting for costs? Well, right here under the commitments tab, we have placed our purchase orders for certain items that we need within the project. And I've also set up a subcontract agreement. I'm going to be using a subcontractor on this job because I don't have the manpower to get something done. So you can see here that go over to the far right, I have items that are open and I have items that are closed. The items that are closed, those materials have been received on the purchase order and we've processed the AP invoice. But for the items that are open, that means that we still have those commitments. We're still responsible for paying those bills. We're waiting for the items to come in. And that's going to give finance some insight as to what's happening for cash flow. They can plan for those items, right? And know that we've got some big expenses that are going to be happening. Yeah.
Quick question. How are subcontractors captured in the cost budgets on the project?
So back over on the cost budget, you can see here, I didn't put down that I was going to have a subcontractor in task 2 or in task 3, but I am planning on using that subcontractor here under task number 4, and that's that final line right here. So I went ahead when I was doing my cost budget, I said, all right, this is all the labor I'm going to need. This is all the materials I'm going to need. And I'm going to hire a subcontractor for this particular section to get that done.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. So now if I come back over to the
And
commitment.
just to add on that, follow-up question on that, it asks, can I capture the subcontractor hours instead of lump sum?
Absolutely. This absolutely could be 40 hours at $100. Yep. Oh, and then I'd have to change my unit of measure here, of course.
Right, to hours.
Yep.
And what's the downstream impact of that from a workflow perspective, Stacy? For subcontractors?
I'm sorry, I don't understand what that question means.
Just like by selecting that, like what's, what type of additional capabilities come down? Is that you're able to analyze subcontractors easier, or what's the benefit of it?
Well, so the only thing would be is that here under my cost budget, I can see here that I'm expecting them to log 40 hours at $100 an hour. As I scroll over here into the middle of that spreadsheet, I do have an open commitment, right? I've placed a subcontract agreement with that particular subcontractor, which normally in a perfect world would be the exact same amount. It'd be $4,000, right? I'm expecting you to bill me 40 hours at $100 an hour, and therefore I'm going to place a commitment to you for 40 hours at $100 an hour. Now, I mean, unless I'm marking up some of that, the contractor quoted me $3,500 to do the job. Maybe I'm only going to go ahead and create a commitment for $3,500. But that allowed me a $500 buffer in case anything is an overrun. So I'm going to have insight here on this tab that I can see what my commitment was. I've committed to the contractor. I know what my budget is. But then as I scroll over to the right-hand side, the cost side is just going to go ahead and give me, after I have my commitments, I also have my actuals. So maybe as of today, I have a commitment for $4,000, but my actual is only $2,000. I've only been billed for 20 hours so far. So again, when you think about that visibility and what does that mean? Well, that means that I'm still expecting another bill for $2,000. So there's that insight on the cash flow planning side of things, but also in terms of the product manager, making sure, hey, wait a minute, this line item isn't done yet. Maybe I need to ping that contractor and say, when are you scheduled to come back? Why did you get pulled off my job?
Perfect.
Yep. So here under the commitments, like I said, we talked about the purchase orders, we talked about the subcontract. The one thing I would like to point out for you is when you're setting up a new subcontractor in the vendor space in Acumatica, you're going to put in the vendor, you're going to put in Bill's drywall, and you're going to put in his address and all of his information. One of the tabs that lives in the vendor space is compliance. And this is a big deal, right? Because we need to make sure that all of our contractors are staying up to speed with their certificates of insurance. So you can see here under American Door, they're one of our subcontractors. When I set up that contractor, just backed myself into a corner. When construction is shut off, compliance is not there. Okay, skip that thought. But regardless, if you set up this vendor for American Door and you've asked them to give you a certificate of insurance, so that they that they're insured and they can be out on your job, then what I would do is I would go ahead and I would attach that document here under the files record, because you want to go ahead and you want to have information there to make sure that you've covered. If an inspector shows up on the job site and says, hey, can you show me a copy of, you know, that guy's certificate of insurance? Now, I'd like to think that he could show that certificate of insurance on the spot like that. But if you're looking to retain those files, you want to have it here, you certainly can do that and put it here. Let's go back over to the projects. Let's go back into that space. Now, if in fact you do use the construction version of Acumatica, there is a tab here that allows you to track the compliance, and it'll alert you when that certificate expires. So that was the added piece that I was hoping to highlight, and I completely spaced it, and I apologize for that. But that functionality does live within Acumatica, and we are trying to partner with you to stay ahead of that and stay on track of those compliance dates and make sure that you're covered. In addition to that, though, like, let's go ahead and say that Plumbing Works went ahead and sent me a scope of work when they were trying to bid. They wanted to earn that part of the job from me. When I'm in that subcontract, I can go ahead and upload a file here, which is a copy of their scope of work or their quote to what they were going to do. So I would also have records to that shown right here. You can also see that this particular project does have a file attached to it here. So, you know, again, let the system work for you. Go ahead and attach those documents here, everything that's relevant to that job, so that you've got good history. And if you ever have to look back, you have the information that you need. I'm going to jump over invoices because that's usually the final step. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about change orders. Now, if in fact you're out on the job site and you're the project foreman and the vendor shows up today, American Refrigeration shows up, and they go to deliver those refrigerating units. As American Refrigeration, we're still waiting for that new refrigerator to show up. If I have that PO open and I'm out on the job site, I, on my phone, on my workplace tablet, or on my laptop, I can go ahead and enter that PO receipt right at the job site. And that's pretty handy because it was delivered directly to the job site, right? It's not like there's a box of stuff coming in the back door of your warehouse where your warehouse worker is receiving those purchase orders and putting things away. In this case, it went directly to the job site. So your warehouse wouldn't know that. Your back office wouldn't know. So when that item comes in, you're able, as the foreman, to go ahead and enter that PO receipt right here, which is going to go, of course, alert accounts payable that they've got something that they're going to need to be looked for the invoice and start matching that process. Now let's go ahead and say that that item was received. But at the time, we were in the process of moving it inside, and we went ahead and we dropped one of those units and damaged it. So now,
sorry, another quick question. Is there a storage limit to the files and attachments that can be attached to certain projects, both past and present?
Jesse, my answer to that is no. Is that correct?
Yeah, no, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, so that goes into pricing, obviously. So it's, as Stacy mentioned at the beginning, Acumatica is different in that it's unlimited users and they use data as their billing points. So effectively there's tiers of Acumatica in terms of usage. And so that probably would go into that usage calculation. So if you're running massive amounts of data, you know, you're going to pay at a higher tier from a usage perspective. Anything to add on that, Stacy?
No, that's perfect.
Awesome.
Absolutely. Yep. So now let's go ahead and assume, like I said, that the refrigerators were delivered, but that and we accidentally dropped one of those units as we were bringing them, you know, up the stairs. So now that becomes a responsibility of us, and we have to replace that. That's one of those areas where there's a change order out there now where we need to go ahead and order an additional refrigerator, but we're not going to have a revenue pickup for that. We're going to have to just absorb the cost, and we're not going to be able to recoup any money there. And but as the foreman out on the job site, I'm aware of this, it just happened. I can walk over to that unit. I can take my cell phone. I can go into Acumatica. I can open up the project. I can create an issue here. I can open up this potential change order. I can snap a picture and I can attach it right to this particular line. So now everybody knows, because of that real-time collaboration, everything that's happening out in the field is being communicated to the back office. They don't have to wait for you to come into the office at the end of the day, the end of the week when you have, your meetings. You're able to go ahead and create this issue right away. Say the refrigerator was dropped. Here's attached a picture. And then, of course, the folks in the office that manage these change orders, review things, look at things, order things, they'll go ahead and keep this particular line item moving and make sure that we get all the items that we need to get done on that. This particular item, there's cold spots in the lobby. And so maybe the customer has complained and they want to go ahead and they want some additional ventilation. Okay, great. We can do that. It's going to cost $4,100 for you to do that. And then our cost is only going to be $300. If I open up this particular change order, the change orders, you look at the project and we have all this information about the project. Then you get to drill into the change order, which is a whole nother little mini project in and of itself. So you can see here, we're saying that there's cold spots in the lobby. We'd like to pick up revenue of $4,100. It's going to cost us $300 to do that. If I scroll over to the commitments, this is where I'm going to be able to set up that subcontract agreement, that, that extra commitment now to be attached to this particular item. I want this company to come back and I want them to do that, that ventilation for me. And I've gone ahead and I've set up this particular purchase order or this subcontract agreement here at that level. Now, because I went ahead and, well, this has not been accepted yet, but if there's anything that's funny or that doesn't match up, or, you've entered something, but it exceeds the budget, or there's not a line item for this item, the system will give you little yellow explanation point warnings, which is great. It's like, hey, just in case you overlook this, if it's a red X, that means no go, you can't go further. But the yellow explanation points are just a warning to be aware of something, and you're good to go. This particular change order is still on hold. Once it gets removed off hold and it's released through the system, we'll be able to take this subcontract agreement and email it or print it and send it off to the subcontractor to go ahead and to do the work. So that's a kind of a mini little project inside the project, and each one is handled on its own. If I go into this refrigerator one, there should be a separate purchase order to American Refrigeration to buy that extra refrigerator for $10,000. So you could see that one's there too. And that's also on hold. And the system's saying, hey, by the way, your budget was $30,000 for this particular line item, and now you're spending $40,000. Are you aware of that? Yep, I'm aware of it. Yep, this is a big snafu and somebody's going to have to answer for it, but it happens. Life happens. So those are the change orders. Again, if there's anything else that you want to do within this particular project, activities, you can go ahead and create tasks, and you can say, hey, John, I need you to run out to the job site tomorrow and I need you to inspect XYZ. By doing that, I create the task, I assign it to him, and that task is going to show up on his dashboard, letting him know there's something that he needs to do. So again, you think about one software system, one source of truth, that field to office, office to field collaboration, where you've now just communicated this need that you need to have done. He's been alerted, and you're not trying to call him, track him down, send him a text message, whatever it might be. The system is going to work for you by sending him that task, letting him know this is something that he needs to do. And once he's done, he can go back into that task, mark it as complete, add any little notes, and then the project will be alerted that the task is done and it's all set. If I need to send some email.
Hey, Stacy.
Yeah.
Just on those pop-ups, that it wasn't sharing on your screen, or were you looking to share those?
You talking about
You
the
know,
little
when-
yellow?
Yeah, like when you popped open the change order there. Those,
Oh, yeah, because we're on Zoom. Okay,
yeah.
yeah, and it didn't share the screen. I'm sorry, you guys.
All good, all good. I don't know if you can bring it over maybe to show them quickly or.
Yeah, so let me go back to the change order. Let's open this up. Don't I just I have to change my parameter for share to share share
Mo-
everything or something like that.
I
There's
think
something.
it's share. Yeah, I'm not quite sure, but or
um,
you can drag it into the screen you're sharing. I don't know.
yeah, me basic files. When it says show all windows, share. Okay, so now if I go ahead and I open up the commitment here for this refrigerator and I click on that. Are you guys able to see the new windows that are opening?
No.
Are you looking at the refrigerator was dropped in cold spots in the lobby?
Yeah.
You are. Okay. And when I drag this over, you don't see it?
No.
You don't see something that I just replaced it with?
No. It's on just the main screen, the projects one that you were on.
Okay. Try one more thing here. Save advanced. Remember doing this
There we
one?
go. Yep.
Did that
Yep.
work?
Yep. You bet.
Awesome. Okay. So now, yep. So what I did was I had opened up this refrigerator was dropped.
Yep.
And I opened up that particular item, and now you can see that this change order has now been created for American Refrigeration for the $10,000. And
Now we can see the yellow, your yellow.
exceeded my budget.
Yeah, there we
There
go.
you go. You were like, what is she talking about? Okay. Yeah. Thanks, guys. I appreciate you letting me know about that. I always said I do everything in teams, so I do that with okay.
Oh, good.
So all right, awesome. So now that we've done, so now I went to activities, and here in the activities, like I said, we could create those tasks. I could also create an email. If there's some kind of information that I need before I can move to the next step, I could go ahead and create an email right here. It's going to open another window. Do you see the window?
Yep.
Yay! Okay. So right here, I could go ahead, I could type this email to whomever. Hey, I need information on XYZ. And then I can go ahead and I can send this right out. What's most important here is that when I send the email, it's going to be logged here as an activity. When we go ahead and get a response back, it's going to be logged here as an activity. So if for some reason I go on vacation tomorrow and somebody else is looking for an update or a status on that item, again, that activity lives here within the system, and that everybody else has access to all of that same general information. So again, it just increases the collaboration and making sure everybody's on the same page.
One thing on that, Stacy, is that there is those records to attach to a project. You can with through that extension.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point.
Just a quick question, is that considered data in the tiers you talked about earlier, Jesse?
No,
Okay.
that one, no.
Okay.
Pricing is, there's different type of transactions that they determine to be volume. So, you know, that's a more nuanced conversation that happy to have anyone that's interested. It sounds complicated. It's actually quite easy when you get into it. So if you're to that point and you're interested, feel free to call us.
And then there's just a couple last tabs here to the right-hand side about employees. If you're, you know, again, you're locking into some certain employees, or if there's any other information that you want set up or equipment you're going to be using on the job. But the last two tabs, let's just go ahead and review, is invoices. In Acumatica, you have the option to turn on something called pro forma invoices. And I'm just going to draw on my own personal experience. When I worked in construction, so many times folks would come in from the field and they would say, hey, you know, job XYZ, I want you to go ahead and bill that at 50%. It's good to go. And I would do the invoice and I would do all of the AIA documentation for, you know, all of their backup and everything I needed to do. And I'd have it ready to go. And then somebody else would come back through the office later on or the next day and say, hey, we can't bill that at 50% because the bank's not going to go for it. We didn't install this, or this wasn't received, or whatever it might be. I'd have to go back and do a credit memo. I'd have to undo the invoice, and I'd have to redo the invoice and redo all of those AIA documents. So had I had access to this pro forma technology back in the day, that would have been a breath of fresh air. You can see here that I have it turned on, and you can see I've done 4 pro forma invoices. 3 of them are closed and have been finally approved and released and have become final invoices, AR invoices. And I've got 1 invoice here that is still open. It's on hold right now. And I'm waiting for all the players to give me the blessing before I can go ahead and finalize it. So if I go ahead and open up that invoice, you guys are good? You can see the invoice?
Yep.
Okay. You can see here that what I've done is I've got the invoice. I've got all of my 4 different areas. This here is telling me if I'm complete and what is it that I am currently invoicing for today. I'm invoicing for the last 25% here, 50%, 55, and 40. Now, this can be based on dollars. It can be based on percentages. It can be based on whatever billing rules that you have set up. But let's just go ahead and say I've created this. I've gone ahead. I've emailed it out to all the players. I want to make sure everybody's good. Somebody came back to me and said, listen, Stacy, we can't invoice line 3 at 55%. Something isn't done, but you can invoice it at 50. All I have to do is come in here, click on this 50, make it 50%. And now I can just go ahead and save that. And now this invoice is ready to go at the new revised amount. It was that simple. It wasn't me doing the invoice, doing a credit memo, coming back, redoing the invoice. It's me just running through saying, okay, now is everything okay? Let me go ahead and email this out. You guys let me know. Once I take it off hold and I release it, then it becomes a final invoice and we're good to go and it gets booked. So you can see here, like I said, I've done that pro forma invoice. If I come up here to a regular invoice that we've done in the past, I just want to go ahead and show you what that invoice looks like here. And right here, I have the ability to pay the invoice now. It's still open. It hasn't been paid. I also have the ability to release the retainage. The system is keeping track of those retainage dollar amounts so that we can bill them and get them later on. I have the ability to print this particular invoice. I can email it to anybody. So again, all of it, somebody calls you a month later and says, hey, can you send me another copy of that invoice? I can come right in here and I can email it very quickly and do that. If for some reason there's something wrong and you do have to reverse it, there's a simple button to reverse it. Acumatica is very forgiving. We're all human. We do things quickly, sometimes without paying much attention. So just know that some of the correction items are available here within Acumatica as well. And as I mentioned to you, you can see here that these are my invoices. These are my retainage amounts. And now I have already taken that first invoice, that retainage of $4,600, And I went ahead and I already released that in a separate billing so that the customer would pay us. But I still have 2 other amounts that are still open. And running project billing is very simple by just doing this and creating those percentages. And the last item here is balances. And this is basically a P&L for our project. And you can see here that I've got my revenue here at the top level. I've got all of my labor, material, other expenses and subcontractors here within the expense portion of it. Again, I can see my recap up here as a summary. And if there's anything I want to drill into, if anything looks a little bit out of whack or it's getting close, it's gone negative, it's close to getting negative, I can click right on that individual line itself, highlight it, and I can view all of the individual transactions that have hit that particular item and just drill back on that. That includes labor right down to the time card level, or like all of the materials to the AP level. So you can see this was a very simple one. It only had one line item, and this was a subcontract invoice. But this here, it's very easy to drill back and look at those items. So again, it's just, I just, having worked on QuickBooks at one point in my life and being able to see this, this extra amount of functionality with still doing the same things you're already doing, I just think is a breath of fresh air. So I think that the project accounting is a very, very powerful tool, still incredibly affordable, for companies that are smaller, that don't want to bite off that big ERP expense. But for those that need more, that are already on a big system, again, having that one source of truth, I think really does speak for itself. And real-time information anywhere, right? You on the road, on vacation, if you're in Fiji, you still can work if you want.
Wonderful, Stacy. We got about 8 minutes, so just we'll open it up to the group. If there's any questions, please put those in the chat, and we'd be happy to answer those. In terms of just one question I had, is in terms of time sheets and whatnot, how does that flow into payroll and whatnot? Anything that you can highlight from that perspective?
So lots of folks, there are many folks that look at the payroll system within Acumatica and are looking to use that solution. And if that's the case, that's great. We have the ability here. Cancel. Okay. We come over here into the timesheet section. Employees that are entering time cards, they could go ahead and they can enter their time, whether it's here on a desktop looking version on their laptop. They can also enter it on their mobile phone. We also have the Acumatica app where you folks can be entering their time cards each week and submitting them for approval to their supervisor. All of those time cards are going to be at the project level, at the task level. So if you are doing any tracking of all of those project costs, all at the labor level, those items are going to come over when you process payroll, and those are going to feed right into the labor line here and be connected to that. You have the ability to turn on or off if you want the labor dollars and hours to hit the project immediately as it's accumulated, or if you want to wait and have it hit the project after payroll is run. Just there are some people that feel like, waiting a week, waiting 2 weeks for payroll to be run, they're living, without accurate, up-to-date information. So you have the flexibility of using either. So that's another nice feature. If in fact you choose to use an outside payroll source, you've got one that's working, it's a full HR solution, and you like what you have, then when you do those, when you accumulate all of those labor hours, all we're going to do is an import into Acumatica, bringing in those labor hours and dollars, and you're going to go ahead and update the projects that way. So then you're still going to have a full project accounting. You're still going to have full visibility on all of that information as it relates to that. And then, of course, you're also bringing in a journal entry to update your general ledger for the payroll run in and of itself. So there's a couple of ways of getting the information into Acumatica, whether it's through a time card entry, through an import from an outside service. And then there's also time activities. if in fact you want to go ahead and post time to some of these individual jobs at a time activity, like entering a time card, but
Yep.
not exactly the same. But
Yep.
that's a third step.
Yep.
Couple more questions, and I have one as well. What do the project dashboards or data views look like? Is there a high level project financial overview? And second one was, is the
I'll
product...
address, Dwayne, I'll address the second one.
Sure. So yeah,
Just a high level project financial overview.
Yeah, so we do have the project manager like we talked about, and that's really more in the manager itself and the insight into his or her individual projects. And there can be some financial information on here, profitability, things like that. Now, there's a couple of other dashboards that live at Acumatica, but the way that I have them configured today, they rely on the construction module to be up and operating. I have that turned off right now, so I'm just going to preface this by saying, I'm going to open up this project overview dashboard, and you can see that there's going to be some information that's locked down because these items feed from the construction space. So I apologize for that. Actually, there's like no relevant information here because other than your items to approve, right? So people have tasked you with certain projects, and here's an item that comes off of your tasks. So there's something there. There's another dashboard here that's the construction project manager. So again, there's going to be some information that we're going to be able to see here. Some other information is going to be locked down. But yes, it honestly, it depends on what functions and what modules are turned on, but there's absolutely, you'll be able to feed into your dashboard any financial information that you want at all. If I turn on the controller dashboard, for instance, this is going to be a dashboard that's going to bring accounts receivable information, payable information, but there also could be project and profitability information that's down here as well. You know, we all wear a lot of hats in companies, and, you know, and we have responsibilities that kind of spider all over the place. So these are highly configurable by using the design mode and bringing any information like that onto your current dashboard, as long as you have permissions and you're allowed to see certain financial data.
There's another question on, is this product strictly cloud-based or is there an on-prem version? So I'll answer that. So it is very flexible deployment methods. So certainly most clients are on a SaaS model, so cloud. But for clients that may have data restrictions and they want to host their own cloud, it's deployable from that perspective as well. So tons of flexibility in terms of the deployment method to meet the various needs of clients.
Within your dashboard there, is there different options for data visualizations, or are they kind of like get what you get or automatic, or how does that kind of work?
The dashboards themselves, so let me click on this design feature and show you, like, so this here is an example of some KPIs, right? I could go ahead and copy this widget. I could put it somewhere else on my dashboard, make some little tweaks and changes, and take the same source of data and view it differently. I could edit this particular widget altogether. I can delete it. I can drag it and drop it somewhere else. Or I can come right down here to the bottom and add a whole new widget. I want something completely different. And when I hit add a new widget, this is truly designed for the non-programmer. Like, I'm actually qualified to do this, right? So, I mean, that just goes to show you how easy it is. You can see I can have a chart. I can have an embedded web page. I can have a KPI, a pivot table, Power BI. So there's a whole slew of different types of ways you can view the data. Once you pick one of those, you hit next. And then it's going to ask you, okay, where do you want to draw the information from? What do you want to do with it? How do you want to filter it? What color do you want it to be? Like, it's just going to start asking you all these questions. And once you finish it, you're going to have a new item here on your dashboard.
Cool. I had another question that kind of relates to one in the chat. Is at the start you have the weather data. I'm just wondering if it's easy to put in Environment Canada weather data, same as the National Weather Service, which parlays into what was also questioned about how many Canadian customers at this point, as it's a bit US centric.
I don't
Jesse,
know the exact stats. I was recently in Chicago at partner training, and Acumatica fastest growth region is Canada right now. I can't remember exactly, Stacy, how long ago they entered Canada. Was it 5 years ago, maybe?
something like that.
Something like that. So certainly it has, Acumatica is less known name than some of the other players out there. But I can tell you it's certainly because of it being relatively new, I guess, so to speak, compared to the competitors. It is growing. So
Yeah, yeah. You know, definitely in the hundreds, maybe even the thousands, you know. We could
yeah,
certainly ping marketing and get a metric
yeah,
on that.
for
But
sure.
um,
Absolutely.
and then with regard to the weather service, yes. So this here again is just is a widget that I put in. So if I hit design here and I open up this particular National Weather Service and I just say I want to edit it, when I do that, all it's going to do is ask me for the source. So I could
Oh,
put
okay.
any website here and call it what I want and then finish and then it'll feed here, you know. I mean, I could have my Amazon cart there if I wanted. Kidding.
Let's go to final question here before we wrap up here. And is there a feedback loop that can be used from project results, which can feedback to the quote process? Kind of getting at maybe some AI, machine learning.
Oh, um, that's a great question. I
I'm not
was,
sure the answer to that either.
yeah, I don't know. I think we'd have to think about that. Maybe we could ping somebody internally on that, Jesse.
Yeah,
You know, when you think about a loop, right? I mean, the first thing that I thought of was business events, right? So anytime a job is closed, a project is closed, we want that information, you know, to populate or create, you know, a new template so that we've got new updated information to draw off of, or you know,
yeah,
or something like that. But there is something in Acumatica called business events, which basically just says, anytime this happens, I want you to do this. So, you know, there's,
using something like that.
yeah, it's something like that. But that's a great suggestion.
Yeah,
You know, and to that point, Acumatica comes out with 2 updates every single year. And I will tell you that if you look across software markets, lots of companies do not have customer satisfaction scores in the 90s, and Acumatica does. And you know, and I'm proud of that fact, but I you know, most leading surveys and giving it feedback and information, and we have a 95 96% satisfaction score. It's because we do listen to our clients and our
yeah,
customers, and when they
for
need
sure.
something, we come out with those new, we put them out in the new launches. And, you know, there's a free community where people can ping each other for questions. And it's just, you know, we're kind of an open book. And I just think that we do a great job with that. And
Yeah,
I think
and
that
I,
speaks for itself.
you know, from my experience, Acumatica is the only ERP provider that I know of that has a customer bill of rights. One of them is that you own the data, and you know most people don't really take that in consideration when they're looking at an ERP. But that's a big factor in that, you know, if you decide to move or whatever happens in the future, you own that data. You're not held hostage in terms of um, you know, needing to move that data wherever you need it to move. So um, that is it for now. Stacy, really appreciate it. Wonderful demo, and obviously we're just scratching the surface, as I always say. If you're in the ERP buying space, you know, make sure you understand what you need. We can actually build customized demos to actually prove out that that the software will do as the business requirement needs. So do your homework, and if you need help with that, please reach out. And thank you for joining us today.
Thanks.
Bye for
Thanks,
now.
everyone. Have a great day.